I wonder what my dog feels when she sees deer. The hairs along her back expand into a padded plate, a sign of physical defense. But she stands still by my side. When other threats arise, I lose some control of her. She begins to pull the leash and fight my attempts to manage her movement. With deer, she holds still. If it spots us, she doesn't bark, unlike when a stranger or friend enters her field of view. I like to pretend the two animals share thoughts without my knowledge, discussing the predicaments of their current lives and making small talk like humans locked in an elevator together. Both offer peaceful crumbs of their personalities without dropping one's guard. Sometimes I see deer as vermin, creatures that scour the earth, consuming as they please, and leaving ticks for the dogs and people that walk the trails. They are gross looking, without emotion in their eyes. Sometimes I see deer as fauna, dignified beings that capture your attention if you're lucky enough to spot them. They can steal my attention even when I'm driving a ton of steel and am traveling at dangerous speeds. They are crepuscular, animate organisms that thrive when hidden. The best of their species are those that we never experience, and yet they may be right beside me on this forest floor. He only uses lead paint for his artworks. He says it brings out the best in his abilities. When the brush contains the molecular weight of lethality, it flows in a manner that cannot be replicated. Every time he uses modern acrylics, something feels wrong. Without the toxicity, how is he supposed to make the best pieces? If there is no physical danger, is there any worth in the outcome? How can he move past the tools of the old if they are what make him? Art exists as a tool for healing and expression, not as a burden to be carried for the sake of existing. If the utensils of a trade appear to function only in the bubble of burden, then the message has been missed, and it only spreads the cancerous particles to others. Now he uses graphite. Its medium hardness allows for smoother and softer tones. His templates began to overflow with unintended colors. They forge an unending brevity. They do not need to be replicated because they can be expanded upon by others. The doors closed at a smooth yet slow pace, meeting in the middle and concluding with a soft ping. Inside the elevator stood a tall gentleman in a clean navy suit. His tie was taut into a tidy half-Windsor that blended beyond his neck and into his spirit. This was not his first ride up to the 65th floor. The last time he was here, his board meeting climaxed into a screaming match and concluded with a thrown drinking glass exiting his hand and shattering across a man's jaw. He was hoping for this meeting to end the same. Before the elevator could pick up speed, it halted abruptly. The buttons started to flash in sync and the floor stabilized to a stop. He had been stuck in elevators before. Hell, it felt like there was more time spent traveling between skyscraper levels than in his own office. Every elevator delay hadn't lasted more than a few minutes, and thank God he was alone this time. He glanced at his watch to track the time lost, only noticing his mechanical watch had also stopped in its place. How strange. But it had been a while since he pulled his Audemars Piguet Royal Oak from the collection. His phone substituted his watch, reading 6:13 p.m. At least he remembered his suitcase. He knelt down on a single knee, balancing the case on his thigh that ran parallel to the ground. Inside were multiple bindings of legal documents. All but one were useless, but he felt better with a full case. The irrational fear that perhaps his own higher-ups would open his belongings and only see the single packet that was consuming his workload gave him chills. He removed the aforementioned groupings of legal paper as reading material to pass the time. On his second read-through, the lights began to flicker. There was a varying rhythm to the transition between light and dark. The first 5 blinks happened in rapid succession, breaking him from his focus, followed by 8-second intervals of on and off, like a child squeezing their eyes shut over and over to regain vision after staring at the sun. Next came bursts of 3, where the first 2 switches happened within a second, and the third holding. On, off, on. Off, on, off. On, off, on. Then darkness. Not even the emergency light was activated, so he returned to his phone to light the panel and finally press the red button with a silver bell. Nothing trailed the puncture of the knob. He swore that some type of distress beacon should sound, and that the intercom would have provided some reassurance. But the only subsequent detail that answered him was the small icon on his phone showing no service, no internet. It's 6:34 p.m. Anxiety began to set in, and with it a flurry of questions about what was going on. What if the whole building lost power? No, the whole block. How unlucky do you have to be to end up like this? His phone had a 40% charge now, but it felt odd to wait in darkness. The phone screen provided plenty of light to keep his mind open. This had to be a joke, and whomever is responsible is getting worse than fired. He opened his eyes to see nothing, awakening from an accidental doze-off. For a moment he forgot where he was, but the cold metal wall of the elevator cabin and short carpeted floor were hard to misread. His phone now shows 10:15 p.m. You have to be fucking kidding. How could this be happening? The fire department surely would have given him some kind of instructions by now, even if all the power was out. Prior anxiety was replaced by fear. His screams echo through the vertical corridor. When no voices respond to the wails, he binds his fingertips with the thin crack between the doors. With great force, the doors slide open to reveal the concrete slab between floors. The phone's screen light baked into its soft gray tone. An inch of the floor above became visible. The continued darkness revealed that the lights were out beyond the elevator. The gap was a foot above eye level. He couldn't look directly out into the building. He thought about using the lip in the floor as a way to pull himself up to the elevator ceiling. But without a ceiling hatch in the elevator, it was clear the only way he was getting out was through the main door. His last idea was to try and shift the elevator by jumping up and down, but the thought of plummeting prevented action. 5:45 a.m., the time his day normally started. The rhythm consisted of waking up, following along with a Pilates YouTube video, and making breakfast for one. He had the same coffee maker from college that would make a burning smell if you didn't pull the pot out before the last drops of water cycled through the machine. Most of his household consisted of half-functioning items, in part because he hated replacing things, but also because most were gifts from friends or family. His inability to express feelings meant gifts held holy weight. He liked his drive into the office. It is a time for music or radio or news. use, anything but work. Sometimes he would intentionally park far so that there were an additional few moments before entering his building. Who knows how long it's been now? His phone has been dead for days, and without any form of light, there was nothing for his eyes to adjust to. The lack of stimuli was altering the elevator. It now felt like a safe haven rather than a prison. No work to be done here. If he's lucky, this will last forever. I must be immune to spoiled milk. I've had that pint of milk in my fridge for months. It was hiding behind the clutter of the bottom shelf. When my eyes met the plastic container, the memory of pushing it to the back corner to make room for additional goods was interrupted by a lack of bodily response. I didn't experience the usual pain of soured milk making my stomach churn into an acidic butter. I used to gag at the sight of spoiling rot, but have lost that feeling alongside other sensations. My apartment window would sometimes smell of sewage when the arroyo alongside it would fill with rain. The water would collect all the discarded items from inside town and run between my complex that sat downwind. I'm no longer bothered by the rancidity of smelly shoes, uncollected dog poop, or leaking methane. The mayor did say that there could be side effects to the train that derailed in the neighboring countryside, but that all the extremely dangerous chemicals that leaked into the soil had been removed. I wonder if there were some mildly dangerous ones that they missed. On the bright side, life is easier without these bad sensations. My walk to the bus stop is no longer littered with stray odors, and I now only have to see the mold in my office parking structure. It's weird that I miss some of these putrid environmental degradations. A cigarette is just not the same without the smell of tar. I miss the funny fragrances of cheeses that may or may not be in their prime. I miss the fumes that linger when I fill my car with gasoline. I miss the smell of the dairy farm that I pass on my way to the grocery store. We are out of rations and must embark outward. Finite currency, or anxiety, drives ingenuity, or more anxiety. Vehicles move like jello on ice. Automatic metal and glass open to aisles of consumption. Store of meats and produce bring relief and grief. Perhaps today I buy cocktail shrimp for dinner. The long corridors function as food chutes, consuming the inside of my cart. Fatigue has set into the brain food. Quick, the faster I reach the end, the less I buy. At least my self-checkout checks out. How could I forget milk?